Okay, we're going to read chapter 3 of the Magic Faraway Tree. And they're going to the land of Topsy-Turvy. What is Topsy-Turvy land like? Asked Joe, taking another pop cake. I've never been there, said Moonface. But I should think it's quite safe, really. It's only just come there, so it should stay for a while. We could go up and see what it's like and come down again if we don't like it. Silky Saucepan and I will come with you. Do you want that? Moonface turned to Saucepan Man, who was enjoying his 5th pop cake. Saucepan, we're going up the ladder. Are you coming? Said Saucepan, looking all around as if he thought there might be bees about. No, I didn't hear any humming. I said, are you coming? Said Moonface. Oh, of course. Are we going to take our lunch? Yes, said Moonface, going to a curved door that opened onto a tiny cupboard. I'll see what I've got. Tomatoes, plums, ginger snaps, lemonade. I'll bring them all. He put them in a basket. They all went out of the funny curved room on the big branch outside. Moonface shut the door. Joe led the way up to the very top of the faraway tree, and then suddenly Rick gave a shout of astonishment. Look! He cried. There's an enormous white cloud above, and it's all around us. Isn't it mysterious? Sure enough, a huge white cloud floated above them, but just nearby was a hole right through the cloud. That's where we go! Up there, said Joe. See that branch? See it that it goes right up to the top? Come on! They all went up the last and topmost branch on the faraway tree. It went up, up and up through the purple hole in the cloud. At the very end of the branch there was a little white ladder. Joe climbed the ladder, and suddenly his head poked out of the land of Topsy-Turvy. Then one by one all of the others followed, and soon all 7 of them stood in the curious land. Rick was not as used to strange lands as the others were. He stood and stared, with his eyes wide, so wide open, that it seemed as if they were going to drop out of his head. And indeed, it was a strange sight he saw. Every house was upside down and stood on their chimneys. The trees were upside down, their heads buried in the ground and their roots were in the air. And the people walked upside down too. They're walking on their hands, with their legs in the air, said Joe. What a peculiar thing to do. Everyone stared at the folk of Topsy-Turvy land. They got along very quickly on their hands and often stopped to talk to one another, chattering busily. Some of them had been shopping and carried their baskets on one foot. Let's go peep inside a house and see what it's like. So they set off to the nearest house. It looked very peculiar, standing on its chimney. No smoke came out of them, but smoke came out of a window near the top. How do we get in? Said Beth. They watched the Topsy-Turvy man walk on his hands to another house. He jumped in the nearest window, going up the ladder first. The children looked for a ladder that entered the house that they were near. They couldn't find it. They searched and searched. They soon found it. They put it up to the window and peeped inside. Everything really is upside down. The chairs, the tables, everything. How uncomfortable it must be. An old lady was inside the house. She was sitting upside down in an upside down chair and looked very, very uncomfortable. She was angry when she saw the children peeping in. She clapped her hands, and a tall man walking on his hands came running in from the next room. Send those rude children away, shouted the old woman. The tall man hurried to the window on his hands, and the children quickly slid down the ladder, because the man looked really fierce. It's a silly land, I think, said Joe. I vote we just have our lunch and then leave. I wonder why everything is topsy-turvy. Oh, a spell was put on everything. And everybody, said Moonface. and in an instant everything was topsy-turvy. It wouldn't be a good place to sit and eat our lunch. There was a big oak tree whose roots stood high in the air. Maybe over there we could eat our lunch. Joe and Moonface set out the lunch and it looked really, really good. There's plenty for everybody, said Joe. Have a sandwich. Have a plum. A crumb, said Saucepan in surprise. Is that all you can spare me? A crumb? No, a plum. A plum, 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 said Moonface, pushing his ripe one into the Saucepan's hand. Oh, a plum, said Saucepan. Well, why didn't you say so? Everybody giggled. They all tucked into a good lunch. In the middle of it, Joe happened to look around. He saw something surprising. It was a policeman, and he was walking on his hands. Look who's coming, said Joe with a laugh. Everyone looked. Moonface went pale. Ooh, I don't like the look of him, he said. Suppose he's come to lock us up for something. We couldn't get away down from the faraway tree. We wouldn't have time. The police came right up to the little crowd under the tree. Why aren't you topsy-turvy? He asked in a stern voice. Don't you know the rule in this land? Everyone and everything has to be upside down. But we don't belong in this silly land, said Joe. And if you were sensible, you'd make another rule, saying that everybody must be the right way up. You've no idea just how silly you look walking on your hands. The policeman went red with anger. He took a sort of wand from his belt and tapped Joe on the head. Topsy-turvy, topsy-turvy, he said. And to Joe's horror, he had to turn himself upside down at once. The others stared at poor Joe standing on his hands, his legs in the air. Oh, fiddlesticks, cried Joe. I can't eat anything now because I need my hands to walk with. Policeman, please put me right again. You are right, said the policeman, and walked away on his hands. Put Joe the right way up, said Rick. So everyone tried to turn him over so that he was the right way up again. But as soon as they got his legs down and his head went up, he turned topsy-turvy again. He just couldn't help it because he was under a spell. A group of topsy-turvy people came to watch. They laughed loudly. Ha ha ha! Now he belongs in topsy-turvy land. He'll have to stay here with us. Never mind. You'll get used to it. Take me back to the faraway tree, begged Joe, afraid that he really, really might have to stay in this peculiar land. Hurry, hurry! Everyone jumped to their feet. They helped Joe. They helped him to where the hole ran down through the cloud. He wasn't used to walking in his hands and he kept falling over. They tried their best to make him stand upright, but he couldn't. The spell wouldn't let him. Oh, it's going to be difficult to get down, said Rick. I'd better go down first and see if I can help him. You push him through as carefully as you can. He'll have to go upside down. It was very difficult to get Joe through the hole because his hands and his head had to go first. Moonface held his legs to guide him. Rick held his shoulders as he came down the ladder. At last, all 7 of them were through the hole in the clouds and were on the branch outside. They stood looking at Moonface's house. Joe held onto the branch with his hands. His legs were still in the air. Moonface, Silky, can't you possibly take this away? He said. It's dreadful. Silky, what land is coming next to the top of the faraway tree? Asked Moonface. Have you heard? I think it's the land of spells, said Silky. It should come tomorrow, but I'm not really sure. Ah, well, if it's the land of spells, we could easily get a spell from there to put Joe right, said Moonface. Joe, You must stay the night with me, and we can wait for the Land of Spells tomorrow. The others can go home and tell them what's happened." "All right," said Joe. "I can't possibly climb up that tree again if I'm upside down, so I guess I will just have to wait here. Mother will never believe it, though, when the others tell her why I don't come home, but it can't be helped." They all went into Moonface's house. Joe stood on a chair upside down. The others sat about and talked. Rick was sorry for Joe, but he couldn't help feeling a bit excited. If this was the sort of adventure that Joe, Beth and Franny had, what fun things they were going to have for the rest of the summer. The others began telling him all the adventures they had had. Silky made some hot chocolate and went down the tree to fetch some popcakes, and when it was 5:30, Beth said they must go. "Goodbye, Joe," she said. "Don't be too unhappy. Pretend you are a bat. They always sleep upside down, and they don't mind one bit. Come on, Rick. We're going down the slippery slip." Rick was excited. He took the red cushion that Moonface gave him and sat himself at the top of the slide. Beth gave him a push, and off he went round and round and round inside the enormous Faraway tree, sitting safely on his cushion. What a way to get down the tree. That was the end of chapter 3. There'll be chapter 4 coming soon.